Hi, I'm Russ Segner. We put this series together to feature narrow gauge layouts, seldom seen because they are not located in cities where we normally visit for national narrow gauge conventions. Thanks to the organizing committee of Jerry Cornwell, Pete Smith, Mark Lachey, Dave Adams, and Jeff Schultz. Information on this program is available at NNG at groups.io. We hope you will join us. So now for our program.
All right, Jimmy, go ahead.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Appreciate you coming to the meeting. It's a nice forum to get together and get to know people a little bit better and to learn a few things. And so, but anyway, Russ asked us to kind of give a little bit of an update on PBL projects and that type of thing. And many customers, they're always interested in the injection molding process, how we make plastic freight cars and that type of thing. Behind me is our injection molding machine. It's one of three that we have in our facility to mold parts. And what we are currently working on is the RGS short caboose, an SN3. We completed the tooling a few months ago, but once you get to that point, you're only about half finished. There's always changes to be made in the tooling, fit ups, mistakes in drawings. We always find another photo after we've done the drawings to show us another detail. And so we go ahead and modify the tooling. So this past couple of weeks, I modified the body tooling so it fits together a little bit better. We got the end beams. One of the problems with producing plastic parts, thick cross-section parts is sinking. And so I had to go back and add some cores in the back of the molds to make the parts hollow so they wouldn't sink. And so we've got our body to our short caboose, and then we're finishing up our roof tooling this week. And so we'll pop the roof on it, and then the cupola will nicely fit inside the roof. So you got kind of yourself a little instant short caboose. And so we're looking forward to this. This will be the first kit out, will be the 0400 and 0403 kit. And then we're hoping a little bit later on, maybe next year, to introduce the real grand versions of the same type of caboose. But just to give you an idea how far along we are, we're basically done with all the tooling on the car now. And so it's just a matter, like I said, we'll finish up with some test shots and fix some parts here. We've got the doors. The 0400 had a panel door and also a door that had a piece of plywood covered over the panel, so you'll be able to model the caboose the correct way in the era that you want to model it in. And so we kind of pay attention to little nuances like that so everybody can have an era specific model when they're building it. The big question I always get asked is what the tooling looks like. And so I'll just show you the tooling that makes up the sides. Here you can see the mold. Low production molds we machine out of brass. And so this is what it looks like when it pops out of the mold. This is probably about 60 hours of machining to get it to this point. And obviously there's two halves to mold together, and the plastic shoots down through the gate and presses itself into the mold cavities. And here's the mold for the cupola kit. And once again, a lot of work involved doing all the scribe siding and that type of thing. It's done with like 5,000 end mills with like 1,000 step over. So you can imagine it takes a lot of time to produce that kind of G code, but then also to run it on the milling machine. And so we're just finishing up with, we modified our SP box cars to make them easier to build. We added some detail on the interior of the door. We modified the underframe completely. So it's a one-piece brake shot that snaps in. So it'll make it a lot easier to build, save you a couple hours of construction on the car. And so we got that all finished up, and believe it or not, Bill's almost done with the instructions. So maybe we can see that kit rolling out of here maybe next month. So, but we just kind of stopped, pulled the plug on the kit as we were redeveloping it. and went back and fixed a lot of things that we always wanted to fix throughout the year. Now we're in the process of making tooling for a one-piece freight car truck and also a one-piece caboose truck for the Rio Grande cars. So that's our next project. But that about sums it up. I'll keep it short because we went a little bit long. And if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can go back to Mike and Craig and ask them questions.
Jimmy, when do you think you're going to have the ready to run drop bottom guns available?
We don't know for sure. We're in the process of negotiation with the factory over in China. But as you know, with COVID, everything's a mess and no one can guarantee dates on anything. A lot of the model railroad manufacturer shops for our factories are only running like 25% of their personnel. So you can imagine things are already behind when they were running 100%. So you can, at 25%, it's just a nightmare trying to predict anything. So I would guess we'll probably have a little bit better idea in a couple of months, but we'll just have to wait and see what they say.
That was my exact same question, so thank you.
Okay.
Okay, my question is the Malleys, Jimmy. Any update on that?
On the what? On the Malleys?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking with Seho the other day on him. He's going through the drawings and what it's going to take to pull off all the versions. We may not be able to do every version. We might have to drop a version or so, but Seho promised that we should see him about towards the end of the year. So
Cool.
we're holding his feet to the fire. He doesn't have, once again, a lot of his projects dropped out. And so he can spend a little bit more time on our projects than he would normally take to do it. So hopefully we can get him in that time frame.
Will you be able to have custom road names on any of these, or?
Yes. Yes. Just like our previous models, you can have custom road names.
Jimmy, what's the timeline on the kitchen car?
I'm going to start that as soon as we finish up the truck molds. So maybe we can have something by the narrow gauge convention time.
Oh, great, great. Thank you.
We have it all designed, ready to go. Basically, we just have to commit it to tooling, but we got a little bit behind with the SP boxcar project and the short caboose. We didn't anticipate it taking this long. And so we're just, as usual, we're always behind, but wide open and running late, but we'll eventually get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you, Jimmy, do we need to take a collection and buy you a narrow gauge hoodie?
Yes, please do. I think Milwaukee ran some narrow gauge in Iowa, so I'm legit.
Occasionally, their mainline trackage out here was narrow gauge.
Yeah, I bet. So, well, thank you guys. It's nice seeing all of you. So hopefully we'll get to see each other in person one of these days.
All right.
So-
Well, thank you very much. I know you're pressed for time with all of the projects and all the other stuff that's going on. Now's the time for everybody to sort of chime in and ask some questions or make comments. Be friendly.
I'll make the first comment. I'm probably the only guy that got to visit Mike's maze layout without him being there. And we drank all his beer, and then we left the beer cans as flat car loads for him for when he got back from Chicago.
That's a true story. It was quite the way back to the layout.
I have a question for Jimmy. One of the things that bedevils a lot of us, well, me anyway, is brake wheels and getting them on the brake wheel shaft. So and I remember last time you were on, you showed us a new plastic material that you were using that was incredibly flexible but paintable. Any thought of producing wheels, various brake wheels on a shaft of, with an extra length that we could trim, that we could use on a lot of the equipment where it gets broken because we're operating with those units? Jimmy, you still here?
Apparently he's not.
Well, that's a question I've asked. I'm curious if anybody else has had that experience, because I can never get a brake wheel, either a plastic one or a brass one, to stay correctly on the shaft once it's been broken off.
We'll have to invite you up to ON3 as that product is available or used to be available from San Juan Car. And I think probably the current San Juan people still offer it. Yeah, it's great. You can't break them.
What's the material they're using?
I think John Parker started shooting that stuff in Celcon, which is the equivalent of Delrin,
Yeah.
just different
Okay, well,
manufacturer.
that's a question for Jimmy. I'll ask him tomorrow.
It's jet age
Absolutely.
plastic.
I'm surprised
Yep.
it's stiff enough for that length that it would have to be in plastic.
Yeah,
No-
they're
no-
fine.
no
I've used
problem. Yeah.
I've used the San Juan ones, and they're great.
Russ, I think you ought to just tell Jimmy we took a vote and that's his next project. I would like to take a quick second, and there's a lot of you that I know by name, but we've never met, but you send me your checks, and that's to renew your membership in the Narrow Gauge Preservation Foundation, and it's appreciated, and I thank you for doing that.
We've had two really good presentations on the East Tennessee and North Carolina. I wonder if anybody out there is figuring on modeling the East Broad Top now that it's getting renovated.
Nope.
Nope. Anybody
Yeah,
making anything in
It's
SM?
Craig, I've done some work on my East Broad Top models, but maybe I'll put something together.
Well, there's a challenge to find narrow gauge railroads that we can model besides the RGS and the Rio Grande. It's always kind of fun to see what else is out there. I'm going to do a clinic Thursday night on the DuPont Railroad here, which was at a powder plant along the Puget Sound. It was narrow gauge, 3-footer. And of course, DuPont had a similar operation back east at their main operation. And same type of equipment, quite a bit of good photography.
I'd be willing to do some South Park stuff. I have a Palisade that's almost 1-to-1. It was at the convention in Kansas City.
In Denver.
And Denver. Yeah, that's right. And Denver. It's been around a while.
Has anybody done anything on the narrow gauge in Pennsylvania and then that one in Ohio?
It's a pretty big influence for me. You know, I'm not modeling them per se, but I've sort of patterned my layout after that kind of railroad and modeled a few things from them.
So where are you getting your research material?
Oh, books. Oh, it's fantastic. On the OR&W, it's a book called Hidden Treasures. And there's a couple of books on the Waynesburg in Washington that are good. Jim Weinshanker is the guy to go to for that. Narrow Gauge in 3 Feet on the Panhandle is the classic one. He didn't write that one. Then there's the Tianesta, or the Pennsylvania Logging Series is fantastic. I really like the Tianesta Valley. It's a great common carrier covered in there. That's a good one. Shays and Climaxes and Little Heislers. And some passenger operation too. What else is there? Oh, the
Tuscarora Valley.
Yeah, Tuscarora Valley and Newport and Sherman's Valley. That's another nice one. I modeled an engine house from the Newport and Sherman's Valley book.
My friend George Pearson models the Tuscarora Valley, and he wrote a book.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I don't have that.
Barney's Red Rooster or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I need that book.
Has anybody done a layout of the Monon, the little slate railroad?
Oh, the Monson.
Or the Monson, rather.
Not that I know of. And of all the 2-foot locomotives that have never been modeled in brass, that still exist, both of them, it's kind of surprising in a way. Actually, Trevor Marshall's ON2 layout was patterned after the Monson slate operation, although it was freelance and the locomotives were not exactly correct, but I have some of his models, like some of the slate mining stuff that he had. Fascinating stuff, really neat.
Hey, David, would you send me an email and we'll chat a little bit further about some of this? I think there's an awful lot out there that we can still explore. And of course, trees are trees and people are people and the rail itself. But some of the other aspects of these little narrow gauge lines are very interesting. A lot of good 2-foot stuff from Maine, of course, and some really interesting layouts been presented. Who was the group that did the huge modular layout in, golly, was NN3 in the Portland, Maine convention? Anybody remember that?
I do. I remember it, but I don't know the name of the group. I have pictures of it. And there was an East Broad Top group that had a modular layout that they showed at Kimberton for years.
Okay, we'll likely get some of the other modular groups to present. There was some chat about that earlier today, where guys can show their individual modules. And we're talking about maybe getting a group from different locations where their modules are located, because they usually have them at home until they get together, unless they're big enough for a trailer.
We'll have to sidebar a Mud Hens staff meeting for that.
There you go. Yeah, we're looking for some real interest in, I don't know what kind of room we'll have, Robin, for the convention here in 2022 for modular groups. But of course, we're way out here in the Northwest. That's a bit of a drive for most of you guys.
Mud Hens are planning to bring some Western Division modules to your operation. We have 10 or 12. I don't know, Steve's on this video. There are 12 of us on this video tonight. So we're going to take you over.
You might even get a couple of Mud Hen modules from Jefferson City.
Okay.
We've got plenty of room for the 2021 convention. I'm the module chair for that.
Ah, very good.
So go to the website, fill out the paperwork, and send me your pictures and whatever other info.
Now, Johnny was on earlier. I'm going to make sure he's here next month to chat about what's going on for 2021.
Russ and I were talking earlier about the Mud Hens putting together some sort of a little virtual layout tour for these sessions in the future.
Right.
Combining it, discussing some of your modules.
That's one of the ways the hobby is growing. We've got 5 really good modular groups here in ON30. And so it's one of the ways that guys can accommodate the change in their lifestyle with downsizing and all that. So it's a way to grow.
In terms of Mud Hens, the beauty is we're all over the country, and it's really hard for all of us to get together at any one time.
Right.
So we're talking about doing things like the Western Division will go to Seattle, and so we're working on that.
Chuck, it's funny to see Chuck and Scott on here, and we're only about a mile away from each other. We've got new modules under construction. I'm building a module of Durango. If you can see behind me, for some reason it's flipped the photo mirror image. The last time we set up was just Western Division modules at an NMRA regional convention in Mesa, Arizona. And that went real well. And there's actually a YouTube video of it, if you look that up. Worked out real good, and you can see how bald I am when I'm not facing the camera. And then we do hope to go to Seattle, and I don't know what's in between now and Seattle, but yeah, we would consider setting up and doing like a little video tour for you, and that way you get more of a description of what you're looking at. But have a look at that YouTube video, look it up. We're on there.
Okay, and keep in mind, all of this is on our YouTube channel. Burr Stewart was on here earlier. He's an HO modeler who does all of our video editing and so on for these sessions, and it's been putting up these materials and all of it you see there. And very much appreciate his work.
Well, I have a comment here. One railroad that's captivated my imagination is the Nevada Northern in Nevada. I'm not sure if it's a narrow gauge or not, but the Nevada Northern's a really interesting copper mining museum, and nobody seems to be talking much about modeling that. A local area modeler here in Seattle, Bob Oakes, has created a model of the Nevada Northern. He's got a pretty outstanding model. It's really great.
Well, John Cox is doing something of that theme in SN3. He's in Puyallup, and he'll be open. He's one of our new SN3 layouts that'll be ready for 2022. He's the fellow that was doing the Homosote roadbed that was quite popular.
Yeah, Bob used to be fairly active in the 4th Division. He's had a bunch of things that took up most of his time, like building custom homes and things like that. So he hasn't actually had a whole lot of time to devote to modeling lately, but yeah, his layout when it was operational was really something to take a look at.
I was just looking on my little iPad. If you look up Mud Hen's layout, you also see what appears to be our Kansas City setup from that convention. And it looks like a guy named Mark the Paintballer put that on there. I don't know if he's on here tonight.
There was a group at I don't know whether it's St. Louis or where, but the narrow-minded narrow gaugers. Anybody involved in that one?
Russ, I know Martin Piernot was on earlier. He might have jumped off, but he's involved in that group. He's here.
Okay, that was quite an impressive set of modules.
Russ, I wonder if anybody's thought about like the Carson in Colorado, in Nevada, narrow gauge. There was a book, Slim Rails in the Sand. A lot of information available for that railroad. A lot of people don't even know it existed.
I think, the big problem, of course, is motive power. And we're indebted to PBL and Railmaster for producing some equipment that we can run. And that's a big barrier for a lot of these other layouts or other railroads. So that's why Pete and I and others freelance. We can scavenge equipment from whomever.
Well, one can always do a layout of a prototype and just freelance the locomotives on loan from.
Well, actually,
Yes,
Durango and Silverton has maybe done us a favor by importing those diesels.
That's why I modeled the White Pass like Mike May does. We can run anything we want. They had East Tennessee 10-wheelers during World War II, Sumter Valley Mikados.
Yeah.
They had 7 of the 10 DNRG K-28s. They had Silverton Northern engines. You name it, they ran it. And then in the 60s, they got tank cars, the frameless or narrow frame tank cars from DNRG. And they got, 11 hoppers from these broad top.
That's exactly right. Especially if you do that era, then it's a little bit of everything was up there.
I think some of the Hawaiian roads did too.
That's true. Yeah.
I have a copy of a picture, really a sad one. It's of a K-27 sitting on the dock in Seattle at Seattle Iron and Metal, and it had come back from Alaska, and it never made it past Seattle Iron and Metal.
I'd love to see that if you have that picture. I don't think those
I'll dig it out. It was, unfortunately, a couple of them came this far and didn't get any further south.
Well, in some of my research, I've stumbled upon a few things. If anybody's interested in the Oahu Railroad, they had something like a K-28, but with the air pumps on the side like a K-27. And if you model a K-27, you can kit bash it enough to make a reasonable run at that. Another one that's interesting is the Klondike Mines Railroad. It was a standalone that they built from Dawson up into the Klondike Valley. It's just a real short line, and it worked itself out of existence in about 1909 by shipping milling equipment up the creek so that it wasn't necessary to have a railroad anymore. But they ran something very similar to a C-21. They had 2 of them, I think. And one of them still exists up there somewhere. I haven't been up there yet, but I want to.
That was ex-White Pass and Yukon engine, I believe. They had the 6 and 7, later the White Pass number 56 and 57. And one of them ended up there on the Klondike Mines. And then the Klondike Mines Railway had their number 4, which is now there in Colorado at Como at the Roundhouse. That was Klondike Mines Railway number 4, built in 1912. And by 1913, it was abandoned. And then 1938 or 39, 1940, something like that, the White Pass brought it back down to Skagway, and it was the Skagway switcher through World War II.
Ah, hey, I found the book. Here's the book on the Klondike Mines. It's called The Bonanza Narrow Gauge Railway. I just happen to have that handy. And what I want to do is they had a 260, which came from a Kansas Central 3-foot gauge, and which is very close to the Northwest Short Line Spartan 260. So that's one project I'd like to do amongst many. Yeah, it looks pretty close. I'll see if I can find a picture.
You mentioned the locomotive,
Is the
Klondike.
Klondike Cape, the one in Como, that's the one you're talking about?
Oh, that's
no, the one in Como is the 2.6.2.
Yeah, it's a more modern engine.
I live in Newcastle, Washington, and we had one of the early narrow gauge railroads here, it's about 2 miles from my house. 3 of those locomotives ended up on the Klondike, and one was a 10-wheeler. I understand that 2 of them are still alive somewhere in a museum or on display up there.
Well, there are a couple of 2.6.0s up there. There's one in Whitehorse. You Yukon guys can correct me. It's one in Whitehorse and there's one in Skagway, right?
Yes.
Okay, Skagway, I think is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
The 51 and the 52 from the White Pass.
Okay.
And the 53 was on the Klondike Mines, I believe it was the 53 is what they called it or numbered it as, or maybe it was just number 3, but it had been either the 6 or 7 on the White Pass. They were outside frame Paul Klein compounds.
That's a bigger engine. Yeah, there's a nice video on restoring that one in Skagway. I don't know if it's got its tender back yet. They were working on that. I just watched the video. It's a fairly recent project.
Would one of you want to work up a presentation for sometime later this year on restoration of some of these units that you're describing? There's a challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, Chuck, another sidebar.
Daffy Pappas is working on a wrecked locomotive out of that, and I don't know which one it is.
It's 61. It's 61.
Okay.
That's an outside frame 280.
Oh yeah, Stothy is doing 61.
Yeah.
And he's made some progress on that in the last like 2 months.
Yes.
Because I just had something from him that said he's having to rebuild everything from nothing.
In a pile of rock.
Yeah.
It was used as riprap.
It was riprap.
Junk.
We'll get him on for a full session here sometime later this year.
Mm.
And of course, 168 is going to run as soon as the railroad runs next year, I think. Or this year.
Talk to
That
us.
was what it looked like in 1994.
Wow. So Stothy's pictures of what he did when he rebuilt the cylinder that had been crushed.
That was
It's
phenomenal.
quite fascinating. It brazed all that together.
That's the 60.
Okay,
Excuse
because
me,
yeah, we
that's
went,
the 60.
we were up there, what, 2012, 2013. I don't remember seeing any other locomotive than the 73 though.
I have almost the same picture there, but here's another one of a slightly different angle of the same engine. That's the 60. It was an outside frame 4.6.0.
I had a nice camera that day. I took 700 plus photos that day, and I don't know how many hours of video.
Why so few?
Cool.
So where was the White Pass in Yukon?
Where is it? It runs from Skagway, Alaska, and ran all the way to Whitehorse in the Yukon Territory.
The CNTS just published its schedule, and the 168 train is on it out of Antonito to Bighorn.
It's May 29 is when they're figuring to start.
Then I think they're running 2 trips a week. Is that right?
I think that's still pretty tentative because of the
COVID thing. Yeah, although Colorado's a lot more open than New Mexico.
Hey, Chuck Proudfoot, you might mention that the 169 is also being restored. Maybe some of these guys would like to help with that project.
Well, I'd love it, seeing as how I'm the president.
Does the cats have to quarantine every time they cross the border between Colorado and New Mexico for 14 days?
No, you don't. The way you do that, and I just did it this fall when I was doceting, is as long as you don't go out in New Mexico, you can cross the border with impunity. No, you can go into a hotel, you just can't go to the grocery store. Well, that was the way it was. It may be a little lighter now. But yeah, we just bought everything in Colorado and Antonito. Of course, you know how many grocery stores are there in Antonito. But yeah, you could do that. I stayed at Chama Hotel and Shops for 3 weeks and didn't have to quarantine at all. And by the way, we're having our annual meeting on the 18th. Go to our website. There's a Zoom. We'd love to have you all come, and we'll tell you what we're not doing.
All right, well, why don't we hang it up? And Now, give me some feedback right now. Give Pete and I and Jerry some feedback. You okay for the format so far?
Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, this is good.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, full credit to all you
Excellent.
guys that put this together.
Well, we're looking for additional input. Candidly, the tool we have with this, we can go a lot of different ways. And so when you mentioned the sidebars, there's lots of possibilities with that as well. So it just depends on who wants to spend the time and so on. But I think it's well worth it to get better acquainted, et cetera. It's been very
Hey, Russ.
beneficial to me.
Russ, I got a question for you. If we want to present a model, would you rather that be live or would you rather that be in a PowerPoint presentation?
PowerPoint works pretty well. We've had a couple of presentations where a fellow walked around his layout with his cell phone. And it depends on how good you are at holding the thing steady. And you have to not move the camera so fast that it gets people dizzy.
Are you talking about doing a presentation on a model?
Yeah, specifically, I'm building a module of Durango, and in order to build Durango, I've got to scratch build a whole lot of that building. So I'm scratch building the roundhouse, scratch built the car shops, scratch built the freight house.
You're talking about showing off one of the models, not the module itself, right?
Right. The module itself is not ready to show off yet.
The perfect venue right now is to send Dave Adams 3 or 4 pictures, photographs with some words, and then we can run them in the beginning.
Yeah, did you see the video that or the PowerPoint we played at the beginning?
I didn't log on till about a half hour went by, so I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, if you go to the web page, I mean the IO group. Wait, we've got this on the chat, don't we? Anyway, his address it's available at the IO group. Simply take 3 or 4 pictures of the model that you want to do, put some words to it, then he puts it in a PowerPoint format and shows it. In fact, I guess Russ has put it up right now. You'll see
it here.
There we go. Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah.
On that stuff. The other thing, Steve.
Oh, he's still there. Okay, you're still there.
I am.
I couldn't see your name.
Ed, where are you located? That was a suggestion that somebody made while the show was running. That, gee whiz, where are these guys? You know, that are building all these fine models. So I thought, boy, that's
in Arizona.
we ought to do.
Pete, can you do short videos on this presentations?
Yes, you can. In fact, you just do a video and you insert it into the PowerPoint presentation. And when you click on it the second time, the video starts up. But you need to go down to the bottom of the screen and optimize video if you're giving the presentation yourself. It takes away a lot of that jerkiness.
Well, I mean, I might submit it to you to include within your PowerPoint.
Oh, well, interesting. Yeah, well, I don't know if we'd consider. We'll need to experiment with that and see how that goes.
Let's experiment with that. One of the things we found is that, and you saw this tonight on Mike's presentation, unless you optimize for video, the videos tend to be a little jerky. So what we've encouraged presenters to do is to include the video segments at the end of their presentation, but outside of the PowerPoint presentation itself.
Okay, well, I've got an interesting video on my RGS layout of a double header I ran a few years ago up my grade, about 11 or 12 car cattle freight with 2 engines that I ran by myself. I'll try to include that sometime down the road.
That's great, guys. The whole idea here is to enable you to share easily with other guys what the heck you're doing.
Dave, I'll send you some pictures of my Fiddletown and Copperopolis station and FN3 that I've been building.
Oh, that's great.
Terrific.
Yeah, I can start building a slideshow for February right now. Then that's good.
I have a question, Russ. Are you involved with? There's something being Zoomed Friday night. That's I guess Bill Bisacca slideshow of his trip to Antonito.
It's one of our local 4th Division clinics. Go to 4DPNR, and that'll get you to the 4th Division website. that website will have the information, then the link to the meeting. We've had several guys on tonight that are going to be future presenters. It's really good to see. So they're getting an idea of how we sort of fumble through each one of these sessions.
Well, I know most of the guys are gone, but I think tonight was one of the best Zoom meetings I've ever attended.
Well, thank you.
I recorded 154 at the height of our attendance here.
We hope you enjoyed this. We look forward to seeing you again. The next session will be posted on the group's IO NNG several days before the next program. Look for the link there.